On today's episode of the Bold Little Minds MomCast, we hear from a mom who is a speech therapist. She shares with us some easy, practical strategies that she uses at home with her own toddler. Hi, everyone. You're listening to the Bold Little Minds MomCast, a podcast where we talk to incredible moms who share their unique journey to motherhood, practical tips, and some of our favorite low-prep activities so you can enjoy that hot cup of coffee. I'm your host, Krissy. I'm a mom of 2 boys. I'm glad you're here with us, so pop in your earbuds and let's have some fun. Thank you so much for joining me for the Bold Little Minds MomCast. My name is Krissy. I am a stay-home mom to 2 young boys. Right now, they are ages 3.5 and almost 2. We have been enjoying this unseasonably warm weather here in New Hampshire. We've had 80-degree days, like more than once, and 70-degree days, and even high 60s are still really warm for us this time of year. A few weekends ago, I had cleaned up the outside and the deck to make sure everything was all ready for all the snow that we were going to get this winter. I put the water table away, but I didn't clean it up because I knew that that was going to be a springtime me problem. Well, I had to take it out and clean it, so joke's on me for not just doing that to begin with. But it's been so much fun to have that out and have the door open and have the kids going in and out from the deck again. It's just so sweet to see them playing and exploring the water at their own pace. One new and exciting thing that I've been developing is a brand new website. I'm hoping that if you're listening to this later in the week, my website will already be launched, which is super exciting. It's going to have everything all in one spot. It's going to have all my products all right there. It's going to have the website, my blog, my newsletter, everything. And I'm going to have an inner circle section to my website, which is going to be totally free to join. And it's going to have all of my freebies and the bonus episodes for the podcast all right there on my website. So you don't have to jump around from different places. It's all going to be right there. My newsletter will be coming from there, all of it. So check that out, boldlittleminds.com. Check my Instagram to see when it comes out. And then you can go take a look and just see all the hard work that I've been doing. I also have 2 new products that are going to be launching with my website. The first is a coloring book subscription pack. So you pay for a year of coloring books that get delivered to your child every single month with shipping, everything all included. The coloring books will all be seasonally appropriate, either a theme that's appropriate for the month or something that kids are going to be super into if that month doesn't necessarily have a special theme to it. If you order during the month of November, then I'll send your child a special birthday-themed coloring book during their birthday month filled with all kinds of things like balloons and cakes and cupcakes and bounce houses and all these birthday celebration illustrations for them to enjoy and get excited for their birthday party for. And the other product that I'm launching with the website is customized party favor coloring books. This is so exciting. I did this for my 3-year-old when he turned 3 last year, and I've done it for some friends since in their little mini coloring books that have their name and then 14 pages of pictures that are all tailored to your child's interest. So for my kid, I did trucks and planets and donuts and food and all of these different things that he is just so into. So every page he went to, he was so excited about these things that were all about him. The Party Favors comes a little pack of 4 crayons that you can put into your goodie bags, along with any other little things that you might want to put in. In today's episode, I sat down with Jessie. Jessie is a former high school English teacher who became a pediatric speech pathologist. She now runs her own business and does private coaching online or in person in Southern California. And she gives some amazing expert tips about how to improve language in your child at home, doing nothing really special beyond what you're already doing, just how to optimize those experiences. One thing I love about my conversation with Jessie is that reassurance that the experts are just like us. They're real people too, with real kids. So if you have specialists coming into your home or working with you and your child is not on their best behavior that day, or your child might be having a really hard time emotionally, or they're just going through something, they get it. They're living it too. So it was super reassuring to listen to her and just hear okay, even people who are working in early childhood intervention are having the same issues that I am with my toddler. And they don't have any magic wand that's going to make it better. What they do have are expert level tips that can help you navigate learning to talk and learning to communicate, and making sure you're optimizing those moments in your day. Please take a quick moment while you're listening to leave a rating and review. If you're on Apple or Spotify, you can click those 5 stars. If you're on Apple, you can leave a quick little rating. It can say something like, I really like this podcast. It doesn't have to be fancy for it to help get out into the world. And if you're on YouTube, click that thumbs up. Click that subscribe and leave a little comment. Share any of your favorite strategies that you've used for language development or some of the cute things that maybe your toddler was saying when they were just learning to talk. I'd love to have a conversation going in the comments there. Spotify also has a comment section that we can get a conversation going with if you're listening on that platform. Make sure that you share this episode with your friends. I really appreciate all of you sharing this podcast with your friends. The best way that podcasts can get out there are by word of mouth and personal referrals. There's so many things that you can listen to, and sharing with people that this is something that you found value in is so helpful for us building this community of moms and reaching other people. And if you like this conversation with Jessie, please make sure to check out the bonus episode. It will be linked in the show notes, whether it's on my Substack or moved over to my website. You'll see it there. I'll update the link once it becomes available. And you can hear more of our conversation, including things like how she uses stickers to build language development, and what her thoughts are on screen time as a speech pathologist and a mom. You'll also hear more about how she built her business if that's something that you're interested in learning more about. And she answers the question for us, what is more difficult, naming a child or naming a business? That is not an easy question. Think about that while you listen to the episode. I hope you'll join us for the bonus episode, but either way, thank you so much for joining us for this episode. I hope you enjoy the show. Thank you so much for joining me on the Bold Little Minds MomCast. My name is Krissy. I am a stay-home mom to 2 young boys, and I am so excited to have Jessie here with me today. Jessie is a mom to a 1.5-year-old with another one on the way, and by the time this episode comes out, who knows, that little one might be here. She might be a mom of 2, which is so exciting. Jessie is passionate about supporting parents and feeling empowered to support their toddler's speech and language development. She is a speech language pathologist who has a private practice in Southern California, but she supports parents in coaching throughout the U.S. Thank you so much for being here with me today, Jessie.
Yeah, I'm super excited to be here and chat.
Yes, the content that you post online is also like really accessible. It makes speech not feel so scary and like this big scary thing to support. So I'm really excited to hear about your expertise, how you've gotten here, and how you use that in your parenting and some of your tips and tricks. So I'm excited for that.
Awesome. Thank you. Yes, that's my goal is to create content that really simplifies what can seem really overwhelming sometimes.
Yes, definitely. It sure can, especially if you have somebody who has some sort of a speech delay. It feels like a web that you're trying to cut through. So tell me, what brought you here? Who were you before you became a mom?
Before I became a mom, goodness, I started out actually as a high school English teacher. And so I started out my journey in the schools. I decided to go back to school to be a speech pathologist and really stayed in the schools. That's where I was comfortable. I love working in school districts until my son was born. And that really gave me the push. I knew I wanted a more flexible schedule. I knew I had always dreamed of opening my own practice. And so while I was on maternity leave with my first son, I started my private practice.
Wow, that's so exciting and scary and all these things while you have a little one at home. What brought you to speech? What was the draw for you to go there from teaching?
I I was, like I said, I was an
Yeah.
English teacher and I was seeing my students and I was like, hey, you know what? I love students. I love teaching. I love working with this population, but I feel like I can keep learning more. And so I kind of started looking into master's programs. I had debated if I wanted to go into administration in the school districts. And then I kind of landed on speech and I was like, ooh, wait a second. This is really interesting. And I can niche down a little bit more and just impact those students that need that support. So I just kind of dove headfirst in.
I love it. And so you were a high school English teacher, right? And now you're working with toddlers. Was it through your classes, like internships? What brought you to toddlers from that?
Yeah, I feel like I slowly worked my way down. I started teaching high school when I was working as a speech pathologist in schools. I was in a middle school, and then now I'm working with toddlers. So slowly made my way. But I interned while I was still in grad school at a private practice. I had an amazing speech pathologist that really showed me the joy of working with toddlers.
Mhm.
And I kind of kept that up on the side. I always worked private practice, summer breaks and on Christmas vacation when I was in the school district. And then when I decided to start my own practice, that was really where a lot of my interest was
Yeah.
in. And also, I'm already kind of living that young toddler world. So it's just been a perfect fit. So initially, when I started my practice, I didn't like niche down right away, but really quickly, I started seeing like, this is the population that I'm excited about. This is the population I'm like living and breathing in already
Yeah.
anyway. So I've really just kind of dove in and kept in that area.
So tell me about your little one growing up and how your background now of being a speech therapist has changed. Maybe your perspective changed as you were watching your little one growing up, or maybe it impacted your parenting decisions. Like, how has that been?
I think so much of me being a speech pathologist and me being a parent are very like interconnected
Yeah.
all the time. How I am with my son is really similar, honestly, to how I am with my toddler clients and when I talk to families. And I've realized it's given me so much more like empathy and understanding when I'm having conversations because it's not just like, here's what I learned in grad school and here's what I've learned through research. It's like, here's what I learned in grad school, and then I'm living and breathing it right alongside you at the same time. And so I realize now more like what is realistic for families? Like, what can we actually get done in a day? What can I, what tips and strategies can I give a family that's not going to just send them into total overwhelm? And so it's like impacted how I work with my clients and my families. And then, my husband will probably laugh because it's also how I talk to my
Yeah.
toddler all day long without even realizing it. Like I talk to my toddler, like a speech therapist
Yeah.
because that's just what I do. And so it's been nice to kind of build that into just day-to-day life.
Right. I mean, we all know, I mean, because I was a teacher too, like that every kid is different, the development is going to change, that what's right for one family isn't necessarily right for the next, but we're all just doing our best. But then you're doing it and you truly see that every child is different, and what's good for one family truly doesn't work for another. And like we make these decisions as parents that before we were like, I would never do that. Like, okay, I see whatever, but that's not for me. And now my kids watch a movie to go to sleep every night. And I'm like, how? How am I here? But it's what's working.
Yeah, yeah. I see that every day with my own
Yeah.
son, with my clients and their families. Yeah, it's much more realistic now when I'm giving advice or I'm giving feedback because exactly, I left a screaming toddler tantrum right before I went to work. So if I get to a client's house and their toddler's having a screaming tantrum, I'm like, this is normal. Okay, we got this. Let's, work with it. And I can look at my son as a good example of, everyone's so unique. My son was definitely an early walker. He
Yeah.
was like motor, everything, gross motor skills. And then, as a speech pathologist, I'm like, okay, well, I need to make sure he's talking
Yeah.
too. And he is, and he's meeting all those milestones. But as a parent, it's so easy to compare and to worry. So to be able to look at your own son and just see, like, hey, these are his really great areas of strength, and these are his areas that are doing just fine too, and not get really nervous about it is very nice.
I can totally relate because my kids have both been super advanced with their gross motor skills. Like I think these boys just want to be in the space. Like they just want to climb as high as possible and do all these things as quick as they can. But then it's hard to see this child that's walking and running and doing all these things and not put expectations on them that are of an older child. So sure, like you said, they're not weaker in those other skills. They're doing just fine in them, but they feel weaker by comparison. Does that make sense?
Yeah, yeah. And I see that either exactly they have like in some of my clients they have, they're really strong motor skills and then they worry about their language. Or you have a child that's just happens to be tall or
Sure.
happens to be look a little bit older. And then I have parents that are worried like, okay, but maybe their language doesn't match that. And that's okay. It's okay. And that's just part of the process.
Right. I feel like a lot of people forget what it's like to have the really, really little toddlers and they remember like 4 or 5 on, like whenever they start to be super duper cute humans. Not, I mean, they're cute babies, but now they're cute like people. And they remember those things. So they treat them as such, and they have these expectations that they're going to be able to logic and reason or do all of these things or speak. So it's tough to feel that pressure from other people who aren't necessarily experts, even if your gut is saying everything's okay. Do you see that happening?
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. I feel like that's the conversation I have, at the park with a mom who's like, "Oh, you're a speech therapist. Okay, so I've been worried about this." And most of the time, their kiddo is doing great,
Mhm.
but it's so easy to compare. It's so easy to get nervous about, well, the in-laws were, saying I don't, they can't understand them, or, just kind of hearing input from everyone or social media, and it can be overwhelming.
Yeah, it really can be. I
Yeah.
have a friend whose daughter was in speech and coming to the house and whatnot. And she found this connection with the therapist that was great. It wasn't just like speech anymore. It was speech for the child for sure, but there was so many parenting tips and tricks that were given, or maybe you should try this. This has worked for me in like every area of their development, eating or tantrums or wearing clothes. Are you finding that people are looking to you for advice in a lot of ways?
I think so. A lot of times speech kind of comes first in services.
Yeah.
So, I'm literally walking into people's homes and they're new to services and they're new to therapies and they have a lot of questions, and I'm just like, I'm the one that's
That
there.
makes sense.
So I feel like you are kind of problem solving with them, not only just in speech. And there's so many things that kind of come along with speech sometimes. So like
Mhm.
if your child is struggling with speech and language, they're going to be frustrated because they can't communicate. So you tend to see more tantrums and more behaviors. And so it's almost like that natural progression to talk about those things.
Mhm.
And then even, communication again, it just impacts everything. So if your toddler is struggling to understand or struggling to communicate,
Right.
then they're going to be more frustrated, during bath time
Right.
or when their routine changes and they don't know why. So I do feel like I go into these homes and you get to know these families really well, and you kind of start to like troubleshoot with them, much beyond just like, what is my child understanding? Like, what are they saying?
Right. That's so interesting. You're so right, because so much frustration comes from not being able to communicate effectively. Like I see it with my, what is he now? 22 months, 23 months, something like that. He almost two. He wants to be able to say what he wants because he now can visualize it. He now can see it. He has these desires, but like not being able to get it across, that's like devastating. It's like the end of the world. Where is your
Hmm.
1.5-year old at with this? Is he at that it's so frustrating phase?
Oh yeah, yeah. He's there. He's in like I like almost call it, like my husband and I are joking, he's in like the parrot phase where he imitates everything that I say, but he's still really tough to understand, which is 100%
Yep.
normal, but really frustrating for him because he's, standing here and he's telling me exactly what he wants, and I have no idea. And that's coming from a speech
Right.
pathologist, and that's totally
Yep.
normal. But it's still frustrating, and he still gets frustrated. Uh, oh yeah, we are like I think I had said, I think we're like inching to those terrific twos,
Yep.
and you can see how communication just plays such a big role because he wants to be able to say more than he can, and he understands so much of what you're saying. So it's a tricky time, I feel like.
Now, do you have any good strategies for trying to figure that out, or are you still playing that game of like, is it this? Is it this? What's going on?
Both. I would say both. I do have some strategies, and also usually I tell parents, like, if you don't understand what your toddler is saying, use context, right,
Yeah.
as much as possible. Don't be scared to guess. They will tell you if you get it right.
Yeah.
Ask them to show you if they can. A lot of times my son, if he wants a certain snack, or, he can lead me to it. And so using that is great. And also sometimes it's okay to just say, I'm so sorry, I don't understand you.
Yeah.
Like, we want to acknowledge their attempt, but we're not going to get everything. And that's just part of them learning.
Yeah. Yeah, that's so true. And it's like preparing them for the long haul, because like I still don't understand my 3.5-year old sometimes. And I could just say to him, I don't know what you're saying. And even more so when he's whining. And that's the reason you don't understand, because they're not using their actual voice. So I feel like being open with it early and saying, I don't understand you, normalizes it, so you can really like use your regular voice and maybe I will understand you. That
Hmm.
helps a lot. It
Yeah.
doesn't always change
Yeah.
anything, but sometimes the whining just
No,
gets
no.
worse.
It's definitely, and any speech strategies that any therapist, it's like we're long game.
Yes.
It's the long game here. Nothing is like a quick fix. I can't tell you on this podcast, this is
No.
exactly how to get your toddler talking perfectly. It doesn't
No.
exist. And so getting them to the point where they you want them to be heard, and also getting them to understand like that doesn't mean you're going to understand what they're saying every
Right.
single time, or it doesn't mean that they get what they say every single time either. That could be a conversation too with families.
Right. Totally agree. You love to coach parents to be able to use speech development strategies in their day-to-day life so it's not this big scary thing. Do you have any tips for our listeners for how they can incorporate this in their lives?
So there's lots of strategies, but kind of the biggest ones are you are your child's model
Mhm.
all day long, and it doesn't have to be complicated. So my favorite strategy is to just model language. So I like to use daily routines, and that's super simple because you're doing them already. So you get your child out of bed and maybe you sing a good morning song,
Oh,
or you change their diaper and you talk through what you're doing while you're changing their diaper. Bath time is great. Turn on
yeah.
the water, turn off the water, pour the water. You can just talk about what you're doing. And it doesn't mean adding on all this
Mm.
play or adding on all these other activities. So, modeling language, especially for our little ones, keeping that language somewhat simple. 2, 3 word phrases, turn on water, turn off, those can be really great. And like I said, you can just throw them into what you're already doing. You don't have to feel like you have to get this perfect toy in this perfect setting in this perfect, moment to show a lot of language.
I love that. And I love that you said the songs thing because that takes me back to when my son was smaller and having a hard time with getting his diaper. I would sing, "Who's getting a diaper? Who's getting a diaper?" And I'd say his name, da, 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 da. Yes, he's getting a diaper. He's 2 years old. He's 2 years old. Like just this random song that I came up with. And he loved it. And from that, he was like, he learned his name, he learned his age, and like I didn't even try to do that. It was just kind of this thing that popped into my mind. But I was like, yes, I am doing this intentionally. This is wonderful. But yeah, music, songs, just about your day that you repeat over and over again are so powerful for language development.
Hmm. And it helps with those things, just like what you were saying. My son getting dressed in the morning is a challenge. So I'm, basically a Disney princess in the
Yep.
morning. And I am not, like I had said, I am not a cutesy person. I am not a person that goes around the regular life singing. But with my toddler, if he's having a tough time, I'm probably going to make a song out of it because it does just help with that frustration, and it's such a good language opportunity. So, yeah, I'm singing about putting my kiddo's pants
Yeah.
on. I'm singing about put his shirt on. I'm singing, make it fun. The more you make language fun, the more they remember it, the more they want to use it. So, singing about it, playing, yeah, it's all awesome.
I love it. And one thing that I talked about in an episode that I did with Andrea McGrath was she's passionate about psychology and supporting mental health. And she talked about narrating. So you're talking about narrating like your day to day tasks, but she mentioned narrating your thought process when you're having a hard time or when you're feeling stressed, like my shoulders are getting tense. I should probably relax them. I'm feeling really flushed. I should probably take some deep breaths. And it's the same idea. If you're teaching, you're being like this sportscaster of your life for your kids to model what's going on in your head because they can't see that. But what you have up here is so important for their development.
Yeah, absolutely. I love that. I love that. I should start doing that when I'm working through like tough moments or my sons. Yeah, and there's kind of like two ways that you can think about modeling
Yeah.
language. You either talk about what you're
Mm,
doing. So, I'm washing the dishes, I'm putting away the plate, I'm doing this, or you talk about what your child is doing. And both of those are just really, really awesome and give them all that language that then they get to learn and use.
I love it. And talking about what they're doing from a psychological perspective too is reinforcing because you're probably not going to talk to them through like when they're doing something naughty. Like, oh, you're throwing the blocks. Oh, you're not going to do that. It's going to be during a good moment. So you're positively reinforcing without even necessarily trying. It's like all these two birds with one stone. You're showing them like, I love what you're doing right now. This is fantastic, but they're hearing the language through it too. So great. I love that strategy.
Yeah, absolutely.
Andrea also shared the for emotional regulation 5 4 3 2 1 strategy, like when you're having a panic attack or not regulated, to look around. What are the 5 things you can see, 4 things you can smell, those kinds of things. But she also mentioned it in a way of when you're noticing your kids getting off their like cycle and they're like moving off, to use it like, what are 5 red things that we see? Who can find the most red things? So not necessarily having to go through this checklist of things, but using it as like a language development there too. You can use it with these little ones to help them build language. What are all the red things that we see? But at the same time, it's also regulating them emotionally and their sensory needs. So I think I wanted to mention that so that way people can have that again back in their toolbox. Because I think it's so powerful because it's something that you don't need anything special. You have it with you all the time.
Yeah, I love that. I love that. Anything that you can just pull out in a
Yeah.
moment's notice when you see your kiddo kind of going down that
Yeah.
trajectory is amazing.
Right. If you can catch them and get them off the loop as fast as possible, let's do it. So it's a good one to have in your tool belt. So, what's coming up for you? What are some of your projects that we can find from you?
Yeah, so I have a couple projects. I think, like I mentioned before, apparently me being pregnant is like when I have big ideas.
Yeah.
So that's right now. So, right now, what I'm working on is 2 courses that parents can kind of work their way through on their own time. One is for our children that are not talking yet, teaching kind of those basic toddler signs that can be so helpful in reducing frustration and kind of that like baby step to talking. So, I'm working on that. And then I'm also working on a course that's just all of my favorite speech strategies just really explained for parents because I feel like um, they're not tricky, but they can make such a big impact in a short amount of time. And so I just want to share all of that with families.
That's great. Yeah, ASL is so important to learn for so many reasons. I have friends who post a lot of ASL content, like the Mommy Toolkit Reem, who's one of my first guests. Her son has, it's not even, I think it's a speech delay, but he has medical needs that he's not speaking at the moment. And they use sign language, but they're finding even with their older children who are speaking that when they're in a busy place now having this skill, they can talk to each other across the room. So what an amazing gift to give to yourself and your family, whether speech is a challenge or not.
Yeah, my husband will like sign all done if
Yeah.
we're at a party and he's across the room because those signs are great and they can, you can communicate so effectively and really it just for our little ones can cut down on that frustration because talking is
Yeah.
hard. And for a child to learn how to talk, it takes time and it takes a lot of effort. And so you're basically just giving them a baby step, like, oh, I can use this and I can get my point across. And so it's been a huge support for my son. And so I just want to share that more with families.
That's great. I can't wait to see what you come up with and put that in the world. So tell me, where can people find you?
Yeah, so I'm pretty active on Instagram. My handle is simply speech underscore. So you can follow me there. You can, see my own little kiddo. He's like my model for all my content and just kind of day-to-day life and a ton of speech strategies and milestones and all that good stuff. And then you can also go to my website, which is simplyspeechtherapy.org.
Fantastic. And you, again, I want to repeat it. You work with people across the country in coaching. So if you're really connecting here with Jessie, please reach out to her. And either you or somebody on your team will be able to work with you. So I think that's a great connection.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you. If you like this episode, please leave a quick rating and review. You can leave the 5 stars over on Spotify and Apple, and make sure that you subscribe on whatever platform you're listening on. You can go over to my free Substack to listen to bonus content from our conversation. What you're hearing is just part of what we talked about today. So please go on over there and subscribe totally for free. And then all your episodes will come directly to your mailbox. So that's there for you. And please share this episode with a friend that you think might be interested. The more that we rate, review, and share, the more moms that we can bring into our community and share this with. If you'd like to share your story, you can reach me at boldlittleminds@gmail.com, or you can send me a message on Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, wherever that you can connect with me, I'm at Bold Little Minds on all of those things as well. Thank you so much for listening today. I hope you enjoyed it, and we will see you next time. This is the end of the episode, but it is not the end of the conversation. Join me for the free bonus episode where we hear more from Jessie about how she started her business, her thoughts on screen time as a speech therapist mom, and how she uses stickers to boost language skills and keep her little one entertained. You'll find the link to the bonus episode in the show notes.